This is a phase 3 trial. We have not done one of those yet. So this is going to be new territory. I'm using my ASMR mic. Do I sound buttery smooth?
Oh boy.
Yep.
Can everyone see it?
Yes, but they're listening to my voice right now. I haven't done the intro. Good evening, everyone. This is another edition of the I actually made Bertone take his headbuds off. Why? It is the most buttery smooth voice. You know, I read ebooks occasionally. You know, or the
I'm sorry, I don't like ASMR.
Oh. Let's try this again.
Dr. Char, please, for the love of God, stop.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Journal Club for the 28th of March, 2022, where Hailey has decided to actually come through and pick a paper, which she did a controlled trial, a phase 3 trial, which is, we've never done one of those before. So, Hailey, how would you pronounce your name, Hailey? Muñoz?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Good. Well, what do you pronounce it as?
It's Muñoz, technically, because the N-A.
But
Well,
there's
yeah,
no
but like,
N-A.
there is an N-A.
Where's the tilde? I don't see it.
It's over the N.
I don't see it right now.
It's on the.
You misspelled your name in.
No.
I see it on the screen though. Oh, I see. I do. Yeah. Okay. All right.
The school set up my email wrong.
Right. Okay. So here we go. Try to get involved if you can, people, and try to pay attention, because if you didn't, that would be a little ironic. Hit it, Hailey.
All right. This is a paper on once daily SPN 812 and 200 and 400 milligrams.
You immediately started droning. Come on, be excited about it.
You're so critical.
No, just be like, this is about drugs for ADHD. It's amazing. You know, do something that's a little, exciting.
All right, fine. This is about drugs that don't hurt your brain as much as other drugs for ADHD. Is that better? Okay. So for starters, ADHD is a chronic condition where patients display inappropriate patterns of behavior and inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. In this study, a clinical trial was conducted on SPN 812, which is a non-stimulant medication to alleviate ADHD symptoms. Non-stimulant medications have lower overall effects than regular stimulants. However, stimulants have a greater adverse effect on patients. Low tolerability of stimulant medications has led to increased use of non-stimulant treatment plans. However, ADHD in itself is difficult to treat because of its complex nature. No one person's ADHD is the same as another. SPN 812 has shown the ability to improve activity in serotonin receptors and norepinephrine, I definitely said that wrong, transporters. There has also been a low record of substance abuse with psilocybin, which is the technical drug term of SPN 812. SPN 812 is a psilocybin extended release capsule. And the effectiveness is rated on... Yeah, what he said.
Psilocybin.
Yeah, that. And they rated on the ADHD R5 rating scale and the CGI, which is the Clinical Global Impressions Improvement Scale. The first figure is shows the different treatment plans and the way they went about it for this phase 3 of the study. The gray group is the placebo group. The blue group is the 200 milligrams a day, and then the yellow group is the 400 milligrams a day. It shows the weeks that they were on the medication. Week 0 is obviously the baseline, and the end of study is conducted at week 8, which is after 10 visits. It also shows the different assessments each patient has. So that's figure 1. Oh, wait, here we go. Figure 2 This figure shows the deposition of patients. It also shows how many were screened, received the 200 milligram a day, 400 milligrams a day. It also shows the amount of people in each group that were completed the trial or who discontinued treatment. Now, Amanda, would you like to take care of figure 3 for me?
Hold it. Go back.
All right. Yes.
Hold on. What's missing? Something kind of important is missing.
I don't know what is missing.
Well, let's see if you guys can figure it out. If you're talking about ADHD, there's one important thing that should be considered. What? I'm looking through somebody raised their hand. Vanya.
This might be wrong.
Of course it might be wrong. Just say it.
But is there no like normal person on here? Like is it or is it just showing the effects of people that were on it but there's no comparison? Or is that wrong?
Yeah.
Or is there a comparison?
I'm finding this hard to understand.
I didn't really look at it for very long, so that could totally be wrong. So
Hailey,
Yes.
who are the screened population, the 393 screened population?
People that were screened for having ADHD symptoms.
Okay, so they're all ADHD positive. Yeah, I guess it says the inclusion criteria were a primary diagnosis of ADHD with a score, an RS5 score of over 28. Okay, fine. And the ages were 6 to 11 years. Does that sound right?
Yes, it was a clinical study in children.
Okay, there's still something missing that you might want to know. How smart are you guys? Lila.
They might have said this, but like if they were boys or girls.
That's what I'm looking for. I don't see it.
I don't think it was mentioned.
Yeah,
I
don't think so either.
Because that would have definitely be included in this breakdown
Right.
of like.
And why would that be important?
Because there could be different effects of the drugs on girls versus boys.
Well,
Because
that's a good point. Yeah, actually, hadn't thought of
anatomy
that
and
yet.
body chemistry is different.
Wait, you're saying there's differences between the sexes?
Actually, there are. I found it in my research.
Immediately. Yeah, there are obviously, but and that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Vanya, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say that the symptoms of boys and girls having ADHD are like completely different.
No, I don't know about that because there's a
Oh.
certain criteria they have to pass that's similar. Lila?
You have to test 6 different symptoms, and 2 have to overlap in 2 of the different subtypes. Like, and then there's like the one subtype that's combined of the 2, and if you have more than 3 in that one, you automatically meet the criteria.
Lila, what were you gonna say?
I realized this didn't make any sense, but I was gonna say like I think it's easier to diagnose like younger boys with ADHD because I think
that's
it's
very
more
sexist of you.
You know,
Canceled.
okay.
Canceling her too. No, actually, that is kind of the point. Is that the caseload is 4 to 1 boys for every 1 girl that you have with ADHD. There are 4 boys. Now, are we supposed to believe that in each of these groups, the placebo, the 200, and the 400, they had a 50-50 mixture of boys and girls? I wouldn't know. It doesn't say.
I don't think you can even do that because the numbers wouldn't split up, right? Because I think there's 300 and there's like an odd number of patients.
Yeah, it's okay if it as long as it's close, right? In a 50-50 mixture, but then you would be actually selecting against the boys since it's 4 to 1 boys, right?
Yeah.
You would have to eliminate the boys. Maybe that's why they didn't mention it. That seems like kind of a big miss. All right. Anyway, back to making Amanda embarrassed. Go.
All right, Amanda, your turn.
All right, so this figure shows the changes from the baseline in ADHD rating scale. So the x-axis is the week of treatment, and the y is the CFB and ADHD total score. And it can be seen that as the weeks went on, the patient's scores got closer to the baseline score.
Any criticism of that one?
Don't have any for me.
How about my honors kids all doing statistics? Lila.
It wasn't about the stats. I was just going to say now it mentions that it was 33% female, which is like kind of a big difference, but
Right.
that's not what you were saying.
Yeah, well, if you look at table 1, you didn't put up table 1, right, Haley?
Table 1, no.
Okay,
I only
so
have the figures.
It does break it down by sex, and it ends up being around 70-30, let's say 65-35 girls to boys. It's not quite 4-1, but it is uneven. Also, they also break it up by race. Lila.
No, because I keep realizing I'm wrong. I was going to say the baseline wasn't 0, but the 0 was there, so never mind.
Yeah.
Could it be that there's the legends off the side instead of like underneath?
No, it's okay. Sometimes in graphs like this, it's okay to have a legend like that. The ones you guys are making, it wouldn't be right.
Is it something to do with the placebo being above all of the tests?
Well, first of all, I think one interesting thing about it is that there is an effect of placebo at all.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
that
a
is weird.
placebo be a straight line across the top?
Well,
Right.
ADHD symptoms can change over time anyways.
They don't decrease over time randomly.
Well, it persists through childhood, but it can eventually like start to go away as you grow older and you mature.
But we're looking at 8 weeks.
That is true.
So wait, were they? I can't remember reading this. Were they also doing a talk therapy concurrently?
I
I don't remember
think-
mentioning.
No, I think it was strictly just the
drug.
Just the drug.
Well, people, behold the power of placebo. Look at that. That's pretty interesting. So the placebo has an effect, but they never compared the placebo to the 0. You all see that? So I don't know if the placebo is significantly better than nothing. They really needed another group that didn't receive anything at all.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I'm really wondering about is the asterisks. I don't really know what they mean. If you look at the figure legend in the paper, changes from baseline and ADHD rating, total score, where the star P is less than 0.05, less than, but not less than or equal to. CFB is change from baseline using a least squares analysis, but there's 2 different colors. Is the blue supposed to represent that the 200 milligrams is significantly better than the baseline, while the gold is that the 400 is significantly better than the baseline? The baseline placebo, I mean. And if that's so, what are they missing? Freshman. Let's go through this. they have a baseline, but not over 8 weeks. They have nobody not taking any drugs. That I think that's kind of a flaw. Okay. They have a placebo that they compare the 200 and the 400 against. Anyone? What are they missing? What comparison are they missing? Brody, you should be able to answer this given that you reran my analysis.
Is it like the percentage or change?
Of?
I'm not really sure.
Why didn't they compare 200 versus 400? Do you see? Am I losing my mind? That's a pretty easy thing, right? I hate these dead silences. They don't make for good video. And we use these videos to recruit people. Like we're going to be like rock star Hailey Muñoz shows all of these really cool figures, but nobody understands them. So I don't know really. This is kind of unclear. I don't know what the asterisk means, and they didn't do a comparison of 200 versus 400, which kind of seems obvious to me, but whatever. Okay, move on.
All right. Amanda was also going to do figure 4.
Okay, so this figure is showing the percentage of patients with clinical improvement by the CGI test. The x-axis has the week of treatment, and the y has the CGI score improved percentage. As the weeks go on, the scores look like they improve somewhat.
But not in week 8.
Yeah, it looks like it kind of steadies or goes down a little.
I gotta ask,
Results.
Haley, what year was this published?
This was published in 2021.
Okay, so why is the figure down at the bottom say 2020?
So, like, you know the template?
Yep. I know. next figure.
That is the last figure. So, as a result of this paper, SPN 812 improved ADHD symptoms by meeting the primary efficacy endpoint for both the 200 and 400 milligram per day doses. It was determined that this treatment plan would improve ADHD symptoms for children shortly after their treatment plan starts. So it's rather quick moving. And effective, well-tolerated therapies, specifically non-stimulants, are necessary for those who have developed a tolerance to stimulants therapies. Stimulant therapies are also really aggressive and alter a lot of things in the brain. So there's not enough determination as to whether it's better for children or not. They also have like really adverse and weird side effects.
Let's wax philosophical about those drugs because so many of you were actually on them probably earlier today. What's so wrong? What are those bad side effects? What's so wrong with stimulant therapy?
Stimulant therapy can completely change like eating habits, sleep habits, serotonin intake. It changes a lot of like things that you don't really think about changing that would cause a harm to your body.
Can we go back to the beginning and talk about ADHD for a moment itself? So, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is new as of, I think, the DSM-4. Before that, it was called attention deficit disorder. And now I think that they're just subclasses, right? There's the attention deficit disorder with no hyperactivity, and then there's the type with hyperactivity. And there's a, go ahead and unshare your screen because we're just going to chat. There is a new line of thinking in the neuropharmacology world that ADHD really isn't a disorder at all. It's really more just natural unwanted behavior that doesn't match the more feminized educational system than we used to have in the past. In the past, and I always refer, when we're talking about evolution, I'm always referring to like cavemen. Boys are meant to be outside running around, which is why it's more common in boys, because they're kind of following, according to this hypothesis, they're kind of following a more natural line of development where it's not based on communication and it's not based on learning a lot of things or sitting still and, listening for a bell. That system evolved to create docile workers in an industrial environment, hence the use of bells, right? Bells at the end of the period mean you got to move, just like they do on a factory floor. So modern education is a fairly new invention, but you don't hear any talk about ADHD or ADHD-like symptoms before the advent of the modern educational system, which people like John Taylor Gatto would say are actually bad for kids. Anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I have a comment. So
Yeah.
do you ADHD is just a result of our environment, like the different things that go on in the environment, or is it like something that you're born with? Can you like develop it, essentially?
Develop ADHD. I think it's something genetic, but it is epigenetic. It does get exacerbated by environmental influence. But I kind of do like, I haven't rejected this hypothesis that it's just a natural state of development for people. But if you do think that's the case, then we really do need to rethink how we go about educating these kids to appeal to their strengths. There are a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs who've been diagnosed with ADHD who don't take their medications because they're not creative enough or they're too hyper attentive to things, which is itself a bad thing. It means you don't think outside the box to solve problems. In some cases, people who take Adderall will become so focused on a thing, so hyper focused on a thing that they won't actually complete the task. They're overwhelmed by just the one thing they're focused on. And that itself is bad. So I think Hailey's right about what the problem with the stimulants. I think the one thing we didn't say was how habit forming they are, and also the side effects that they cause, like massive paranoia.
Not to mention the fact they're very addictive.
Yeah. Right. So very famously, there it is. Very famously, this author, Ayn Rand, okay, who is famous for kind of two books, The Fountainhead, and then this is really her magnum opus called Atlas Shrugged. There is a section in here that it took her about 9 months to write, and it is 60 pages of a monologue that one of the main characters does. Now, I don't think any of you have probably read this book. A lot of what's in the book is just not, it's a dystopian future, and it's not meant to be realistic, but sometimes it kind of also goes a little too far. Like, who's going to listen to a 60-page monologue? But she wrote that while on very high doses of Adderall. we didn't call it that at the time. We just called it amphetamine. But she would get very addicted to it. And those really high doses would also cause a whole bunch of other side effects like paranoia, kind of schizotypal results. So there also might be the possibility that using those drugs early in life will prohibit your brain from forming the connections it would have formed otherwise. Because we do know that in young people who allow the ADHD to run its course, by adulthood, it mostly goes away. So the adults tend not to have it. Now, there are some adult forms, but what's interesting is that in the adult forms of ADHD, stimulant medications like Adderall and Concerta and methylphenidate, Ritalin, or cocaine, the original. Cocaine's the original one. They don't seem to have the same effect. They're more dopamine releasing, and how'd you put it? Pleasure or fun, resulting in a pleasurable experience instead of a focused experience. So the drug that's used in adults with ADHD is actually called atomoxetine or Strattera, which is a norepinephrine blocking transporter blocking agent. So different in the adult brain, norepinephrine's involved in picking the salient object. What's the thing I need to focus on, as opposed to dopamine, which is required to keep your focus on something. So it's a little different.
They've also started using bupropion and TCAs for treating ADHD in adults.
So the bupropion is really interesting. We really don't. Bupropion acts on all three of those major transporters: norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine. We're not quite sure how it works. It's mainly used as an antidepressant called Wellbutrin. It was also marketed in the 90s as a smoking cessation aid called Zyban. Still the same drug. Bupropion is very cheap. It works very well in most people. It's one of the classic ones that a lot of doctors try because it works so well, but we really don't understand why. It's a little paradoxical why it works the way it does. If you turn on or block all of those transporters, it shouldn't have the effect that it does. Go ahead, Lara.
This is kind of like a really base level question, but is like ADHD like mostly behavioral? And if you can see it in the brain, how does it like run its course? Like you said before, like how would it change?
Can I answer this one?
Yeah.
I know the answer to this one. So there's no neurobiological path markers for it. It's simply just a study of your behavior. And you have to like for an ADHD test, you go and they like ask you questions and they determine if it meets your criteria. And it's like a lot of fidgeting and like just like little things you probably don't even notice you do yourself that they mark down as criteria for it.
Yeah. Today, in the SciComm course that I had, I did a little bit of a rant, which hopefully was entertaining for you all. But one of the things that's changed a lot, I was talking about things in high school that have changed a lot over the last several years. One of them is the number of diagnoses we have for ADHD and other perceived learning or mental health disabilities. That I think, as someone with an expertise in this, I think my opinion should matter, but it's overdiagnosed, and there's lots of papers about that. So I told a couple stories in that class about my time at Gilman, and here's one kind of to add to it. Gilman again is the oldest boys day school for boys in the country. If you're going to be governor of Maryland, you pretty much need to have gone to Gilman. It's an elite group, very, very expensive, a lot of rich people. And what we found was that if people are getting ahead because they're getting medication and extra time on tests, then parents go, well, I can't let my kid fall behind. So they'll take their child to a neuropsychiatrist or a developmental psychiatrist and say, oh, my kid's falling behind and he has ADHD, needs whatever. They self-diagnose. And what happens classically is that those doctors are like, they do the test because you're paying them for it. It costs anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 per testing session. And so they pay for it out of pocket. And then they're like, yeah, we don't really find any evidence of it. So we're not going to really make any recommendations. And so the parents are, just outraged that that's the case. So then they take them to another doctor. And they will bounce around 2, 3, 4 times until they find a doctor who will give them that diagnosis. ADHD is an entirely behavioral diagnosis. It's not, you can't actually do a saliva test or a blood test or even a brain scan for it. Though brain scans do show a little bit of hyperactivity, but it's really hard to tell. Privilege is amazing. Okay. So is everybody going to switch their medications to this? Like, where, if it's in its 3rd round trial, it's got to be coming out soon, right?
Yeah, we're starting to implicate it more, like treatment options. They're waiting, like this is like one of the first studies in children with non-stimulants that has shown such like high result. So should be coming soon.
Okay.
Would ADHD be advantageous for humans like 10,000 years ago?
I always joke that if the zombie apocalypse happens, I used to do this in class where I'd be like, all right, I want you to think about this. So it's never going to happen, but it's a fun thought experiment. If the zombie apocalypse happens, think like World War Z or what's the other one? Walking Dead or something like that. Who are you going to pick on your team? You can't survive alone. Who are you going to pick on your team? Right? My first pick is a colorblind person. My second pick is probably going to be somebody with ADHD. Okay. And what really chaps me is that people never choose me. I'm like, I know things. I know how to do a bunch of things, and no one ever picks me. So why? Why would I choose somebody with ADHD?
Well, are you choosing someone who's medicated for ADHD or someone who's not medicated for ADHD?
Not medicated. I don't want them medicated. Sorry, I did a search for it. So it turns out that this paper was accepted for publication on January 28th of this year. Okay. It was officially accepted, approved by the FDA on April 2nd. And I think it's called Quellbri. Tell me that's not the name of it. Didn't you say it was Viloxazine? Yeah, Viloxazine is the generic name. So it's going to be called Quellbri. Who comes up with these names? It's not as bad as my favorite of all time is Acifex. Acifex is the worst drug name I have ever heard in my life. Look it up. Look it up. Whose brilliant idea was it? It was like, all right, guys, we got to come up with a name. Got to come up with a name for a acid reflux drug. Acid and reflux. We want it to be effective. I got it. Acifex. Boom. Acifex. That's a terrible marketing strategy. They just should have called it its regular generic name. But so Quellbri, I guess. That's terrible. All right, I'm not going to hold you much longer. Any final questions, thoughts? Who is next week? Let's see.
I think I am.
Just said that.
Amanda.
Okay, so let's see. On the I have you for Tuesday. You can't do it on Monday?
I could do it on Monday. I could do either.
All right, Monday would be better because I have a round for golf and I'm supposed to be at a theater build, so I'm going to move that to Monday.
Wait, is it a practice round on Monday or on Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Is it 12 or 6?
That one is 6. 7.
Is it
7 players.
is it the varsity 7?
Yeah. Tomorrow's going to be 11. The 11 I listed. Okay. Well, so Amanda and her paper is already up. You can go read that already. Let me see. Resources. Hopefully, if the weather starts to warm up, we'll be able to do a dark sky or two. Let's see. Amanda's going to be doing enhancing neural markers of attention in children with ADHD, again, using a digital therapeutic. Okay. Any final thoughts? Hailey? You pulled that one
Nope.
off? Okay.
I did.
Right.
It
All
helped
right.
that my capstone
Well,
was about it.
have a wonderful night. What?
I said it's helpful that I wrote my capstone about ADHD.
I'd like to see
Background knowledge.
that. I'm going to look at that soon. All right. See you
Oh
later.
boy. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, Haley.
Thanks. Bye.